Good morning, my fellow warriors, newcomers, and visitors, to another episode of The Musings of a Scoundrel. Before I start, I would like to give a huge shout out to Cupcake3366 blog. It looks like a new and upcoming blog. This person's story seems to be rather interesting to me, so I'm giving her a shout out, and I will provide a link at the bottom of this this live weblog so that you can visit yourself and maybe support her and read some of her interesting stories. I want to qualify When Hurt Turns to Hope with the fact that I am not a mental health professional. I don't have statistics to back up my particular claims. I am simply a mentally ill person in recovery. In recovery, as you guys have heard in some of my musings and blogs, recovery is a lifelong process. Secondly, this is all unscripted. I'm just talking from my heart and from my head. So sometimes you'll hear me drop off for a moment or two. That's just because I'm collecting thoughts. So anyway, let's get right to it. When Hurt Turns to Hope. This is going to be a rather long presentation, and if you're at work or something and you can't listen, I encourage you to listen when you get home, because I have some things to say from my perspective that may provide inspiration and hope to someone else. That's what I hope. Or, that it inspires debate and is a catalyst for continued conversation. My therapist thinks that my emotional growth stopped around the age of 3. I'm a drug baby. My birth mother used drugs while I was in the womb. My birth father was extremely abusive. He beat my mother regularly. He beat me regularly. The story that I've come to know is that both my parents, while actively using drugs, would abuse me in horrible ways. I still have the scars on my body as testament to that. By the time that I was about the age of 1, my birth mother put me up for adoption in the public system, and I was kicked around to more than 9 foster homes where I suffered even more abuse. And it altered my life forever. I ended up with something called reactive attachment disorder. And it's not a well-known disorder because it's a relatively new disorder, and also it's a very rare disorder. However, that seems to be changing, and reactive attachment disorder is now being used more frequently. The diagnosis began in the early 90s, from what I've come to understand, and it is a disastrous disorder that will change any child's life that has it in so many negative ways. I can't even begin to describe the devastating and horrible effects that reactive attachment disorder has, not only on the child suffering from it, but the family that has to wrestle with this disorder. So my abuse started from about the age of, 1 year old, less than that, maybe 6 months old. And it didn't stop for 11 years. The abuse continued. I was sexually abused by babysitters, teachers, and it was pretty horrible. But it for me, my sexual abuse issues turned me into a robot, sexually speaking, anyway. And it affected me for the rest of my life. Well, the life that I used to live before the word recovery was in my vocabulary. I was physically abused, verbally abused as well. And I'm not going to name who those people are because it's not important anymore. The past is the past. It doesn't matter who these people were. What matters is my recovery now. And that's what, my therapist and I have been talking about repeatedly for 6 months, 7 months now. Change. I will freely admit, my fellow warriors, that I was completely out of my mind for roughly 28 years. I look back now at the people that I hurt, the undeniable destruction that I caused, and for those of you that read my blogs, I thank you, number one, but more importantly, you know yourselves some of my story. Not all of it, but a good portion of it. And it's very revealing, and it could get me into a lot of trouble even today. But you know what? I've decided to make a change. And making a change means, for me, accepting not only my faults, but my actions. When I take stock of what happened to me and what I've done to others, it becomes overwhelming. My therapist had told me that I have to begin to learn how to live all over again. And it is daunting. It's blinding. It's daunting and blinding. It's a struggle to wake up every morning. It's a struggle to eat and clean house and to do things that everybody else does every day. It's a struggle. It's hard. And I understand that it's hard for many of our members to live in a world where they're battling horrendous demons. And it's heartbreaking to know that some of those people don't have a way out yet. They're not, their recoveries haven't started yet. Just some people. I'm not saying all people, but it's tragic. And a lot of those people have been hurt and abused and have been the abusers and, have had chemical addiction problems, including myself. We all have a story. And generally what I'm finding with mental illness is those stories are both tragic and inspiring. It is definitely an amazing journey for me in my recovery, and to be able to witness perfection in so many other people when they think that they're less than perfect. Because they have been hurt. I think to myself, what is my life now? I don't know. I saw a movie called Flight. And at the end of the movie, sorry, this is a spoiler, so basically, somebody asked Denzel Washington who he was. And he said, you know what? That's a good question. There's a link at the bottom of this musings as well to that particular scene. So if you haven't seen Flight yet, I wouldn't recommend that you watch the clip. But anyway, When Hurt Turns to Hope. For, like I said, 28 years, I was totally out of my mind. Sick. My therapist said that I wasn't living life. Mental illness was living my life. When I realized that the insanity of who I was has been shattered, and what remains is a person that is guilty, and I shame myself. I believe I don't deserve anything, and maybe I don't deserve to laugh and smile, because of my past actions. But at least I'm trying. And many, many other members that we have here at Beautifully Damaged are trying. And I salute them, because their stories inspire me to do more every day. To be a part of the human race for the first time in my life is nice. It's nice to have thoughts that don't include depression, suicide, self-loathing. We talked in therapy, me and my therapist, about when hurt turns to hope. We talked about living life on its own terms, much like my friends over at the Sisters in Sobriety and Serenity say all the time. Most of them, I believe, are in AA, if not all of them. When hurt turns to hope, I think it's a complicated process. And like I said, I can only speak for me. I don't know when my recovery really began. I know that it started about 4 or 5 years ago. I just couldn't take who I was anymore. A change needed to happen. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to begin. I started taking medication again, and I started therapy again. And even in my recovery, I hurt a lot of people. Not physically, but emotionally. A lot of people saw me in horrendous distress. And it kept them up at night. Many nights. Trying to deal with me. And my antics. And my suffering. But during that phase, I believe that the search for my birth mother, the search for my birth mother and my eventual finding of her, and me driving to Tennessee to see where they came from, provided me at least a sense of identity again. Well, I say again, I really mean for the first time. At least I understood my family and where we came from. At least part of it. And I think that's when slowly things began to change. And it wasn't overnight. It's taken 5.5 long years of consistent thought. Not only thought, but action. I think that hurt turns to hope when you stop fighting your feelings. And when I say feelings, I mean all of them. Because I know as a mentally ill person, when I was out of my mind for those 28 years, when I was completely psychotic, I was fighting those feelings. I wasn't accepting them. And a lot of people got hurt. Physically, emotionally, everything. And I have to live with that. It is daunting. It's tragic and horrible. And I have to accept that too. I believe that change begins with accepting your flaws. You have to, in my opinion, you have to accept your past. Both what's happened to you and what you've done to others. I don't think, some people will agree and maybe some of you will disagree, and that's okay too. I want to inspire debate, but I think that you will never forget what's happened to you, but you can learn to forgive. And you can learn to accept that this is just how it was. I think that before, I know that in my own life, I had to accept. There was not a particular time in my life for those 28 years that I could really say I had an identity, because I didn't. I was reacting to hurt and pain. And it cost me everything. Everything. I didn't accept the fact that I was adopted. I didn't accept the fact that my birth mother wasn't a mom to me. I had to accept the fact that no one wanted me. I have to accept a lot of things. I had to accept my life on its terms. And I had to come to grips with my actions, my feelings, my guilt, my shame, everything, before change could begin. It has been a long 5 years. And within that 5 years, I've come to realize that that acceptance has come at a great cost to my family, my friends, everyone around me. They've had to stay up with me for many nights when I didn't feel I could go on anymore. And in many senses I couldn't. I could not continue my downward spiral anymore. It became unbearable. My life became unbearable. My feelings were even more unbearable. I was confused and lost and hopeless. The word recovery that I talked about yesterday wasn't there yet. For those of you that are following me and, following my advocacy group in my program, yesterday some of you got to witness, and I thank you for giving me the support that I didn't deserve. But I wrote my first apology letter. And it terrified me. It still terrifies me, and I still can't believe I did it. I've been living with shame for 15 to 16 years. And it was killing me. It still scares me. But I know that I had to come to grips and apologize for my behavior during that very tumultuous time. But I don't know of any other way to recover. Hurt turns to hope, I believe. Also, when you accept that you're mentally ill, you accept that this wasn't a conscious choice. This is just who you are. I know a lot of people that are mentally ill that haven't accepted that fact yet. They want to control their mental illness, but they can't because it's in their mind. They can simply accept the fact that they're mentally ill, take their medication, me included, and try to live a life in hopes of recovery. It doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been. It matters what you're going to do today. Because that's all any of us have is today. Hurt turns to hope when you, well, at least for me, hurt turns to hope when you accept the reality that you have now. The reality now is much more important than anything else. Sorry, that was my phone. There have been many times I've told my case manager that I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve to laugh. I don't deserve anything. And maybe I don't, but she said specifically that she believes people can change. And I remember when I was about the age of 6 or 7, at the height of my reactive attachment disorder, a doctor, plain-faced, bold-faced, told me, "You will never change. You will always be this way." And I felt condemned. And I reacted to that in tragic, horrible ways. Mike, you won't change. You'll be like this forever. I could get into the politics of what I think about that person, but he's not important either. What's important, I think, now, for a lot of mentally ill people, is the hope that they can change too. And you, all of you can. Every single one of us can change. We live in a society where change very rarely is talked about or happens. You know, it's a very famous quote. People don't change. But my friends, we can. And I see change happening every day at Beautifully Damaged. I see the broken people that are slowly beginning to repair themselves, and that inspires me to be a better person. That inspires me to challenge my previous beliefs. When hurt turns to hope, your life can change. I try every day now to recover, both from who I was and who I am now. I may never deserve anything, but at least I can try for it. I've got a team now of people, very generous, kind people, that are helping me through this process. Sure, they're being paid for it, but their passion, my case manager, my therapist, my psychiatrist, my family, my friends that I have now here at Beautifully Damaged provide me the hope of a good future. It may never happen. But I don't have a choice now. And many other mentally ill people in their recoveries don't have a choice. Change or die. In the movie Shawshank Redemption, I think one of the quotes is very applicable here to a lot of mentally ill people, including myself. Get busy living or get busy dying. Those are your options. I believe that. Hurt turns to hope. I also believe when we decide we are going to change. My friends, some of the things that have happened to you and the things you've done aren't erasable. They are burned into your brain for the rest of your life. But who am I telling you know that? More than most people ever will. So you don't think that I'm preaching. I'm, once again, I'm only talking from my experience. Hurt turns to hope, I believe, in my own life, when the day comes that I can relax and stay calm and not have nightmares about who I used to be. I think many of us will pay dearly if we don't change. It could cost us our freedom. It could cost us our lives. Hope is everything. hurt is not. In my opinion, none of us are our hurt. And hurt encompasses, in my opinion, everything. What's happened to you, what you've done to others in the midst of your distress. Hurt is an all-encompassing word. And so is hope. And that's all I've got. And for some of you, that may be all that you have. If you've taken anything away from this, I hope that you understand that I believe in you. I believe in our members. I believe in the people that come here from an outside perspective. I believe in everyone. We all have redeemable value because of our experiences. Because, once again, we're the true fighters. We're the true survivors. We're the ones that wrestle. And some of us wrestle or will wrestle for the rest of our lives, me included, I think. So when I wake up in the mornings now, I think about hope, not hurt. For the first time in my life, I have control over what I do. That's hopeful. My job now is to advocate for others that are suffering horribly. My job now is to put into action my choices. Hurt becomes hope when you pay it forward to someone else. I think that we all deserve it. All of us. And that is an infinite good. I'd like to thank you for listening to the Musings of a Scoundrel. I hope that everyone has a blessed day. I hope that we continue to debate and inspire others with our stories. Thank you to everyone who's been an inspiration to me, and you all have. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.